Hello and welcome back to Rooted in the Seasons, where ancient wisdom meets modern life, usually with a strong cup of tea and practical tools for real busy women. I'm Katya Patel, Ayurvedic diet and lifestyle educator, yoga teacher, and teacher mentor. I help women find more calm and clarity through small daily rituals, seasonal rhythms, and timeless wisdom that actually fits into real life. This podcast is part of a wider body of work I offer, including my live workshop, When Rest Isn't Enough, Rebuild Your Rhythm, where we explore rhythm, nervous system support, and daily practices in a deeper and more structured way. But today I want to talk about something I find really interesting and maybe something that might be helpful to look at in your own life as well. It's one of those patterns that's easy to miss until you start to connect the dots. So just stay here with me for a moment. I promise you don't need to change everything. Ayurveda can seem complicated at first. There are the three doshas, different qualities, digestion, rhythms, and it can feel like there's a lot to take in. And at the same time, it often gets simplified into quick conclusions. If you gain weight, it must be kapha. If you feel restless, it must be vata. But in practice, it's rarely that straightforward. Because the real depth of Ayurveda lies in how different processes in the body interact with each other. And without looking at those layers, it's easy to misread what's actually going on. So when we start looking a little more closely beneath the surface, there is something I see quite often. Just recently, in a consultation, a client shared that she had gained weight after having children. And despite all her efforts, it hadn't shifted. At first glance, it might look like a kapha imbalance. But when we looked a little closer, a different picture emerged. Because here's what was actually happening. Her meals were often too light. Lunch wasn't substantial enough. There was snacking throughout the day. Nuts and small healthy snacks, but constant. Her appetite felt irregular. It wasn't overeating. It was irregular nourishment. From an Ayurvedic perspective, this is very important. When the body doesn't receive enough at the right time, it doesn't simply do less, it becomes unsettled. Appetite becomes irregular, cravings increase, and the body starts to hold on. In Ayurvedic terms, this often reflects increased vata. Irregularity, lightness, depletion. Now, here's something really interesting. The body will always try to get what it needs. If we don't eat enough during the day, it often leads to eating more later. If we don't feel grounded, this can lead to cravings for heavier foods. And when nourishment isn't steady, things can slow down over time. For some people, this shows up as snacking in the afternoon. For others, it feels more like never quite feeling satisfied. These are often the moments that we feel like a lack of discipline, eating the wrong time, eating at the wrong time, reaching for foods you didn't plan, or feeling like the body isn't responding in the way you expected. The body is communicating with you. It's trying to restore balance in the only way it currently can. And this brings us to something important. What we are often seeing here is the body compensating for what is missing. And that's different from settling. Compensation is the body trying to correct an imbalance in the quickest way it can, through cravings, holding on, or irregular signals. And compensation is a temporary fix. Settling happens when the body receives what it actually needs, consistently and at the right time. And that's when things begin to shift more naturally. Eating lightly can feel like the right thing to do, especially when weight gain is a concern. But when it leads to irregular eating, snacking, and never quite feeling satisfied, it very often has the opposite effect. What made the difference wasn't eating less, it was eating more consistently, more structure, more nourishment at the right time, less snacking. Think rhythm, not rules. As promised in the intro, if this feels familiar, there's no need to change everything at once. Very often, eating lightly isn't random. It can come from quiet concern that eating something more substantial, especially at lunch, might lead to gaining more weight or feeling heavy in the afternoon. So meals become smaller, lighter, but also less satisfying. And over time, the body starts to look everywhere for what's missing. This is often sneaking up quietly, which is why one small shift can make a noticeable difference. A meal that is substantial enough to carry you through. For example, when lunch is truly nourishing, the body often settles and doesn't ask for anything more shortly after. It has enough to work with, enough to digest, absorb, and sustain energy through the afternoon. From here, you can simply start noticing. Do you feel satisfied after your meals? Or do you reach for something shortly after? Is your lunch nourishing? Or more of a quick and light option? Do your meals happen at roughly the same time each day? And if you want to experiment, try making one meal a day more substantial. And this works particularly well with lunch. And see what happens when you eat without snacking in between. Notice how your body responds to a little more consistency. Consistency matters more than intensity. Here's something you might experience based on the same principle, but in a slightly different context. In the body, everything is connected, which means the cause isn't always where the symptoms appear. For example, dryness is often associated with vata, but in practice, it's not always that simple. Sometimes what looks like vata, dryness, is actually driven by increased pitta, heat that gradually dries out the tissues. If we're only focusing on vata without addressing the underlying heat, the dryness may stay the same or even increase. Again, the surface doesn't tell the full story. This is about learning how to observe patterns more clearly. So let's wrap this up and bring it back to what really matters. Very often the patterns we are trying to change come from a genuine desire to feel better, feel lighter, more in control, more at ease in the body. And so it makes sense that eating lightly can feel supportive. But the body doesn't always respond in the way we expect. What begins as an attempt to create balance can lead to more irregularity, more snacking, more cravings, less steadiness. And this can feel frustrating. The shift comes from offering the body something it can actually respond to. Consistency, nourishment, rhythm. Because when the body feels supported in a steady way, it no longer needs to compensate or to hold on. And if you're thinking, well, this makes total sense, but I struggle with consistency, you are not alone. This is exactly why I created my live workshop, When Rest Isn't Enough, Rebuild Your Rhythm. It's a space to practice this together in a way that fits into real life, into your life. Thank you so much for listening to Rooted in the Seasons. If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe or follow Rooted in the Seasons on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That way, new episodes land automatically for you. If you like more support between episodes, you can download my free guide, my 5 quick Ayurvedic fixes from scattered to steady, and join my Sunday Read newsletter. You'll find all the relevant links in the show notes. And if something in today's episode resonated, I genuinely love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Substack or drop me an email. I always read and answer all of them. Until next time, stay rooted in the seasons. Bye-bye.